The Philadelphia Eagles are on the hunt. With their eyes set firmly on another Super Bowl run, they're exploring every possible avenue to strengthen their roster. One name that's surfaced lately is Clowney, a player who brings both talent and controversy. The question that Eagles fans and the front office alike must grapple with is Clowney worth the risk? The case for Clowney is a name that brings up mixed emotions in Philly. Many remember that hit on Carson Wentz in the 2019 playoffs, a moment that still stings. Yet despite the baggage, his talent remains undeniable. Drafted first overall in 2014 by the Houston Texans, Clowney came into the NFL with sky-high expectations. Though he hasn't lived up to being a perennial All-Pro, he's crafted a solid career. In 140 games, he's recorded 58 sacks, 108 tackles for loss, and 139 quarterback hits, numbers that reflect a steady, if not spectacular, presence on the edge. Last year with Carolina, Clowney posted a PFF grade of 70.8, ranking him 47th out of 211 edge rushers. His pass rush grade of 73.2 put him in the top 30, and he contributed 33 hurries and 44 total pressures. For a 32-year-old veteran, that's respectable production, especially as a rotational piece. Clowney's versatility is another plus. He can play in both 4-3 and 3-4 schemes, slide inside on passing downs, and still generate pressure. The potential downside. But there's a reason Clowney is available. Since leaving Houston, he's been something of a nomad. Seattle, Tennessee, Cleveland, Baltimore, and most recently, Carolina. No team has kept him longer than 2 seasons since his Texans days. This raises questions, not just about his on-field fit, but his presence in the locker room. Nick Sirianni has been deliberate about building a cohesive, supportive culture in Philadelphia. The Eagles' current locker room chemistry is no accident, and Sirianni has made it clear that character matters. So the critical question here isn't just whether Clowney can produce, it's whether he can coexist with a young, driven core. There's also the matter of fit. The Eagles have invested heavily in youth along the defensive line. Nolan Smith, Jix Hunt, Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari, Thomas Booker, Gabe Hall, Byron Young, Ty Robinson, and Patrick Johnson. All of these guys bring energy and upside. Clowney would be expected to mentor these players, but would he embrace that role? Why the Eagles might bite. Despite the risks, there's a compelling argument to add Clowney. Playoff experience matters, and Clowney has seen it all. Double teams, top tackles, high-pressure situations. The Eagles' defensive line, while talented, lacks that grizzled veteran who's been through the postseason grind. If the coaching staff believes Clowney can slot in as a situational rusher and provide leadership without disrupting the locker room dynamic, it could be a smart move. And don't forget the uncertainty around Bryce Huff. If Huff doesn't mesh with the Eagles' scheme, Clowney could become an important insurance policy. In a league where depth is crucial and injuries can derail a season, having a versatile, experienced pass rusher waiting in the wings might just be worth a calculated gamble. The Eagles are in win-now mode, and Sirianni knows the importance of having every piece in place. Clowney could either be the missing puzzle piece or the crack that disrupts a tightly woven fabric. It's a high-risk, high-reward scenario, and the front office must weigh the potential upside against the inherent volatility. Amari Cooper has been a thorn in the Eagles' side for years, especially during his time with the Cowboys. Now 30 years old, Cooper is coming off a season split between Cleveland and Buffalo, where he posted a combined 50 receptions for 694 yards. It's not an eye-popping stat line, but context matters. Cooper played behind a revolving door of quarterbacks in Cleveland and saw limited snaps in Buffalo. Just 1 year earlier, he racked up over 1,200 receiving yards at an impressive 17.5 yards per catch. Clearly, the talent is still there. On paper, the Eagles' wide receiver depth chart is promising, but thin beyond the top 2 spots. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are locked in as the starters, no question there. But behind them, things get murkier. Jan Dodson, the presumed WR3, is still a bit of a mystery. A first-round pick out of Penn State, Dodson runs a 4.4 and has shown flashes, but consistency has been elusive. Then there's Johnny Wilson, a 6th-round rookie, and Terrace Marshall, a reclamation project. Aeneas Smith remains unproven. There's a stark drop-off from WR2 to WR3, and that's where Cooper could make an immediate impact. Cooper brings a few things the Eagles lack in their depth chart: reliable hands, veteran savvy, and the ability to stretch the field. His ability to consistently beat single coverage makes him a perfect insurance policy if anything happens to Brown or Smith. Given the relatively low market for veteran receivers this offseason, the Eagles could acquire Cooper without breaking the bank. Trust and team dynamics. But it's not just about stats, it's about trust. Do the Eagles trust Dodson to take a step forward? Are they confident that Wilson, Marshall, or Smith can step up if injuries hit? Or does adding a proven veteran make more sense in a season where the Eagles are firmly in win-now mode? Howie Roseman has shown time and again that he's willing to take risks when a veteran can push the team closer to a championship. Remember the Julio Jones experiment? It didn't pan out, but that doesn't mean the approach was flawed. It just means Julio wasn't the right fit. Cooper, on the other hand, is still productive, and his route running is among the best in the league. A.J. Brown, the heart of the receiver room. One factor that could influence this decision is the presence of A.J. Brown. Since arriving in Philly in 2022, Brown has not just been a star receiver, but a cultural cornerstone. He broke franchise records, matched Terrell Owens for most 100-yard games in a season, and posted an NFL record with 6 consecutive games of 125-plus receiving yards. His leadership and work ethic have set the tone for the entire receiver room. Brown's connection with the city is something special. He's embraced the gritty, resilient ethos that defines Philadelphia. As he put it, "This city made me sharper, tougher, and more focused, not just as a player, but as a man." Bringing in Cooper, a player with his own strong personality, could challenge that dynamic. The question is whether Cooper's presence would complement or complicate the established culture. A calculated risk. Ultimately, the decision to pursue Cooper hinges on how much the Eagles value proven production over developing young talent. If the goal is to insulate the team against potential injuries while boosting the receiver room's overall reliability, then it's hard to argue against bringing Cooper on board, especially if the price is right. But it's also a philosophical question. Do you double down on the guys you've invested in, or bring in a known commodity when the stakes are high? This Eagles team has made no secret of its Super Bowl aspirations, and with a loaded roster, every addition or omission could tip the balance. Would adding Cooper give the Eagles the depth they need to navigate a grueling season? Or would it risk disrupting the chemistry that's been carefully built over the past few seasons? One thing's for sure, the decision will speak volumes about how Roseman and Sirianni see this team's path to another championship. Let me know if you'd like me to continue with the next section or make adjustments to this one. The Philadelphia Eagles' approach to building a championship-caliber roster is centered on flexibility and calculated risk. That philosophy becomes even more critical when assessing potential veteran additions like Jadeveon Clowney and Amari Cooper. Both players come with questions, but also the potential to elevate the team in key areas. Clowney, the rotational piece that fits. The idea of bringing in Jadeveon Clowney isn't about finding a starter, it's about bolstering depth. In an NFL landscape where elite quarterbacks force defenses to stay versatile, having a player like Clowney who can move between edge and interior roles is invaluable. You're not asking him to be the face of your pass rush, but to be a rotational piece who can disrupt an opposing offense. And realistically, Clowney's talent level still surpasses several of the Eagles' current second stringers. O'Shawn Mathis, KJ Henry, and Patrick Johnson are all intriguing prospects, but none of them bring Clowney's track record or ability to make an immediate impact. In critical moments, say needing to pressure Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy on third down, Clowney's presence could make the difference, navigating the locker room dynamics. Of course, the biggest question mark surrounding Clowney is his locker room presence. His reputation for being a challenging teammate has followed him throughout his career, but Philly's environment is unique. This locker room isn't fragile. It's anchored by strong, influential leaders. Jalen Hurts' steady presence, Jason Kelce's legacy, A.J. Brown's fierce competitiveness, and the emerging voices of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. If Clowney buys into that culture, he could thrive. If he doesn't, it's unlikely he lasts long. That's the reality under Nick Sirianni's watch. Philly isn't Carolina or Tennessee. This is a team with a firm identity built to withstand personality challenges as long as the production justifies the risk. The WR depth conundrum switching gears to the wide receiver room. the need for more stability behind A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith remains glaring. Brown and Smith are one of the most dynamic receiver duos in the league, but the drop-off afterward is steep. Jahan Dotson is penciled in as the WR3. He's got speed, pedigree, and flashed playmaking ability late last season, but beyond him, it's a collection of unproven talents. Johnny Wilson is physically imposing, but raw. Anya Smith has yet to prove himself at the professional level. Terrace Marshall never broke out in Carolina despite opportunities. If either Brown or Smith goes down, this unit could suddenly become a glaring weakness. That's where Amari Cooper comes into the equation. At 30 years old, he's not the game-breaking threat he once was, but he's still a precise route runner who knows how to create separation. His 2023 campaign was inconsistent due to quarterback instability in Cleveland and limited opportunities in Buffalo, but he still averaged 14.9 yards per catch with the Bills. Those aren't the numbers of a washed-up receiver. They're the stats of a player who still commands defensive attention. A tale of two outcomes. There's a significant difference between the Julio Jones experiment and potentially signing Cooper. Jones was clearly past his prime and struggled to contribute meaningfully. Cooper, however, remains a solid option who could thrive as a third receiving threat, especially if injuries strike. Signing Cooper wouldn't just be about on-field production. It would also be a strategic move in terms of messaging. Bringing in a former Cowboy star to strengthen the Eagles' receiving core would send a signal. This team is committed to being as loaded as possible for a championship push. And while Dotson deserves credit for his progress, showing burst and strong hands when given opportunities, banking on him as the definitive WR3 is risky. If Cooper can be brought in on a short-term, incentive-laden deal, it could alleviate the pressure on the younger receivers while adding reliability to the position group. Smart risk versus bold move. When you break it down, both Clowney and Cooper represent low-risk, high-reward scenarios. Clowney could enhance the Eagles' defensive rotation without compromising the locker room. Cooper could stabilize the receiving core, giving Jalen Hurts another reliable target. This isn't a year for experimentation. It's a year to make every roster decision with a Super Bowl mindset. Roseman knows that. Sirianni knows that. The fans know that. If you can make one move, sign Clowney or Cooper, which would you choose? The rotational pass rusher who could unlock your defensive versatility, or the veteran wideout who adds insurance to your receiving core? The Eagles are on the cusp of another deep playoff run. Taking a calculated risk with either of these veterans could be the difference between just competing and truly contending.